Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76, my original channel. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to donate something. That information is below in the description box. You can also leave a super thanks if you see fit, and if this has touched you. And also, please consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. In addition to being a YouTube content creator, I'm also a writer with 2 blogs and a book project in process. Well, on that same vein, everyone, keeping with the new direction of the channel, the emphasis here now is education, reading and writing, and as the authors Gerald Early and Stephen King said, in order to be a writer, you have to read a lot and you have to write a lot. So I'm reading several books. I'm the type of person who reads multiple books in parallel. I want to thank everyone who watched my video where I read the passage from Cooperation and Coercion, and also the last one, which was the passage from The Richer Sex. In this offering, we're going to do a little bit of Black history. So I'm going to read a passage from Dr. Claude Anderson's Powernomics, the National Plan to Empower Black America. So I'm certain that quite a few of my subscribers are familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson. I became aware of him only recently in the last couple of years, thanks to the vigilance of one Dr. Boyce Watkins, who has an economics focus and an investing / financial literacy focus, though he does stray off into other areas. But he has been very vigilant about getting Dr. Anderson, who's probably, well, he's seasoned. So with him being seasoned, and while we still have him, Dr. Watkins has been pretty vigilant about getting Dr. Anderson out there so we can all hear what he has to say and hear his messaging. And Dr. Anderson, in his content, has been very, very outspoken about the fact that his books, whoever is running the HBCUs, and I'm an HBCU graduate, he makes the argument that whoever is running the HBCUs does not want his books in the bookstores. And I'll just say that if you read his books, I'm about halfway through Powernomics. If you read his books, you can kind of see why some people don't want this content in the hands of the masses of the descendants of African slaves. I became interested in the Black History Reader. That is a collection of his books. I think there are 4. By listening to him talk, but also, and I started Powernomics and then I put it down, but I became interested in it again when he was talking about how and why the United States manufacturing and industries, or the manufacturing industries, why they actually left the inner cities and why they ultimately left the country. According to Dr. Anderson, it had racial motivations. I'm sure someone's going to mention the Kerner Commission or the Moynihan Report or something else to offset what he said, but hearing him say that our industries leaving our inner cities and then our country piqued my interest, because I think that that's one of the worst decisions the people in charge of those companies and of the government policy who helped shape the economics that caused that to happen. I think that's one of the worst things that could have happened to our country, our manufacturing and our industry leaving. In any case, this passage is from chapter 3, which is entitled Building Competitive Communities. Now, that's another contentious aspect there, is whether or not the descendants of slaves in the United States can actually build communities anymore. And in this book, he makes the strong distinction between neighborhoods and communities. I'll read that in another offering, but with everything going on, I was going to read off a bunch of different things that in my opinion are splintering the descendants of African slaves, but I'll just say that with everything going on, some feel that it may no longer be possible to build communities. In any case, this is going to involve social engineering and Meritorious, Manumission, and Willie Lynch. And it reads as follows. Once again, this is we're delving into Black history here. It's not the Black history you often hear about. And if you're new to this, or if you're of another ethnic group, this is going to involve discussions of Black and white. So if that makes you uncomfortable, you've been warned. Okay. The impact of social engineering on communities. Throughout the relationship between Blacks and whites, the majority white society has kept Black Americans under various forms of control, physical, legal, and symbolic. The majority society, through its primary institutions, has used rudimentary sociological and psychological principles to control Blacks and deprive them of their sense of peoplehood. In such a state, Black people could easily be misled into inappropriate behavior, identifying with the oppressor groups and hating their own group. This is not a conspiracy theory. The facts are evident in the marked inequalities between the races and the continued behavior patterns of Black Americans. There is no other way to explain why historical inequalities remain unchanged and Black Americans continue to cede and surrender their wealth and resource powers to their competitors, while their own family, community, and the race as a whole remain powerless and impoverished. These are neither innate nor normal behavior characteristics, so let us examine their origins. Research suggests that aberrant group behaviors among Blacks began in 1710 and were formalized into law when the Virginia colonial government introduced Meritorious Manumission, a public policy that was used to condition and instill internal controls into the psyche of enslaved Blacks. The practice rewarded Blacks who saw slavery through the eyes of the white society. The practice rewarded Blacks who saw slavery through the eyes of the white society, were willing to work against their own group's best interest and inform on members of their race who were planning to escape and free other Blacks. This social engineering effectively destroyed most Black people's sense of community, trust, and accountability. Though undocumented, many Black Americans believe that soon after its inception, Meritorious Manumission was merged into what we now call Willie Lynchism. According to popular belief, Willie Lynch came to Jamestown, Virginia in 1712, offering a mind-controlling ideology to destroy Black people's sense of community. A professional slave trainer, Willie Lynch offered the slave holders a conditioning system that he guaranteed would instill internal controls that would effectively divide Blacks for centuries. He proposed that slave masters create divisions among Blacks and separate them along the lines of gender, age, tribe, culture, class, rank, and skin color. To this day, the effects of Willie Lynchism continue to encourage Black individualism, selfishness, and self-hatred. Though slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery officially ended in 1865 and 1954 respectively, no formal records are known to have been kept that explained the principles and techniques involved in the conditioning process. If our goal is to build functional communities, we can, however, understand the techniques and methods that were used to destroy our sense of community. We can more fully understand what happened if we analyze a similar and better documented mind control experiment that occurred during the Korean War of the 1950s. Meritorious manumission versus brainwashing. Both American soldiers held in North Korean prisoner of war, or POW camps, during the 1950s and enslaved black people were psychosocially and psychologically manipulated in parallel ways. The communist North Korean army and its Chinese consorts used brainwashing on American soldiers. Slavery used conditioning. The biggest difference between the two systems was the extreme physical cruelty of slavery. Both systems were designed to tear people apart. In many ways, communist brainwashing was a combination of Meritorious manumission and Willie Lynchism. It was a sophisticated form of re-education that operated like group therapy run in reverse. But unlike group therapy intended to bring people together, communist brainwashing and Meritorious manumission were designed to drive people apart from one another. The larger purpose of these social conditioning systems was to destroy the ability of the subjects to form natural groups and communities, develop normal relationships, support, protect, and communicate with members of their own group. Table 2 offers a brief comparative analysis of the brainwashing of military captives in North Korea and China over a 3-year period, and the Meritorious manumission policies, parentheses Willie Lynchism, imposed on blacks for several centuries. The table compares the similarities between the two goals: psychological principles, rewards, punishments, and resultant behavior changes. The result of the two systems were nearly identical in every respect, but in each instance, the subjects identified with their oppressors and were often unwilling to return to their former communities to be with their own people. The brainwashed POWs who survived were hospitalized and deprogrammed. No such therapy has ever been offered to Black Americans. So, yeah, those are passages from Chapter 3 of Powernomics. I believe this one is called Building Competitive Communities. And those two passages were from the one section was the impact of social engineering on communities, and the second was Meritorious manumission versus brainwashing. I wanted to read these two because I've heard social engineering discussed in other contexts, and that piqued my interest. I've heard Dr. Anderson talk about Meritorious manumission in his talks as well, and I thought this was worth capturing because there's a lot going on in society right now. There are a lot of changes being implemented, there's a lot of conditioning taking place, and you have to wonder how much of the things that we see, how much of the changing environment has been pre-calculated and premeditated and planned. Some would argue that a lot of the changes that we're seeing and the changes we've seen over the years, everything has been pre-calculated and pre-planned, but to what end? I'm going to end this with the actual definition of social engineering. I'm going to read this via a quick Google search. And we're going to end on that. This definition of social engineering comes from a website called Imperva, and this reads as follows. What is social engineering? Social engineering is the term used for a broad range of malicious activities accomplished through human interactions. It uses psychological manipulation to trick users into making security mistakes or giving away sensitive information. Social engineering attacks happen in one or more steps. A perpetrator first investigates the intended victim to gather necessary background information, such as potential points of entry and weak security protocols needed to proceed with the attack. Then the attacker moves to gain the victim's trust and provide stimuli for subsequent actions that break security practices, such as revealing sensitive information or granting access to critical resources. Yeah, so I'm going to stop this here. Please let me know what you think in the comments section below. Did any of this resonate with you? Did you already know this? Do you believe that there has been social engineering happening within the descendants of African slaves and in society in general? Yeah, let me just stop this here. Please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to make a donation to the channel, that information is below in the description box. And you can also leave a super thanks and also consider joining the Big Words LLC Newsletter. That link is also below in the description box. All right, everyone, please stay safe out there. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.